Hi, everyone. Welcome to the next in our series of virtual consulting offices for I-GUIDE, the National Science Foundation funded Institute for Geospatial Understanding through an Integrative Discovery Environment. This is our series of weekly presentations. They're on somewhat technical topics, and we encourage the audience at the end of the presentation to ask questions. This is a regular Zoom meeting, so you're controlling your own microphone. We ask that you keep yourself muted at all times, and at the end, when it's Q&A time, there'll be a chance to speak if you like. And we were going to wait for just another 30 seconds or so, just to capture a few more people who might come to the live session. Like a lot of these, many people watch the recordings later instead of always showing up at the live one. But we'll just wait a few more seconds. Okay, so welcome again to this next in the series of I-GUIDE virtual consulting offices, VCOs. As I said before, this is the National Science Foundation funded Institute for Geospatial Understanding in an Integrative Discovery Environment. And we are pleased today to have this session being offered by Devika Jain from Harvard University, who was one of the participants in our Spatial AI Challenge last year. All of these sessions are recorded, and they will be available on the I-GUIDE website once they've been processed. Again, this is a regular Zoom meeting, so please keep your own microphones muted. There'll be opportunities for Q&A at the end. So Devika, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Jain. Hello, everyone. My name is Devika Jain, and I'm from Center for Geographic Analysis at Harvard University. Today, I'll be talking about our project on Geography of Human Flourishing. And firstly, I would like to thank the I-GUIDE team for giving us this opportunity to present and share our work with the larger community. And this project is our collaboration with the Institute for Quantitative Social Science, Dr. Stefano Iacus, our project lead, and Andrea Nasuto. Before I go into what we did and how we did it, I would like to touch based on a very basic and important question of what is human flourishing. And flourishing is defined as a state in which all aspects of a person's life are good. And it can be divided into 6 major categories: happiness, life satisfaction, physical and mental health, meaning and purpose, character and virtue, close social relationship, and last but not the least, financial and material stability. So flourishing is a timeless topic, but still it is very current and relevant in today's world. So when we were thinking about this project, we started thinking about that flourishing has been studied for many years. So, but how can we study human flourishing in the age of AI and social media? What are the new approaches? What are the new methods which we can bring in this domain? And that was one of our research questions. The other thing, we started thinking about how we can measure it at scale across space and time. So these were our guiding questions when we started designing our project and our approaches. To tell a little bit about our project, our objective was to develop 46 spatio-temporal indicators for human flourishing. To do this, we decided to use social media, billions of geotagged tweets from Twitter, and we wanted to apply fine-tuned large language models to these geo-tweets at scale. And our project was part of the NSF I-GUIDE Spatial AI Challenge, which integrated the geospatial science and artificial intelligence. So when we started thinking about 46 indicators, we were thinking that flourishing is a complex concept to be uh, to be captured in one specific indicator. So we wanted to come up with multiple indicators which can capture the nuances of human flourishing and the idea of flourishing and how it is expressed by people on platforms like social media in this digital age. So we came up with variety of indicators ranging from happiness, self-esteem, resilience to uh, religion, belief in God. Also, we added two more indicators, which were corruption, particularly perception and mentions of corruption on social media, and the migration mood as expressed on social media. So one of the thing which is unique to our project or our approach is that we wanted to capture the spatial temporal distribution. And that is why the project is named the Geography of Human Flourishing, because particularly we wanted to see the spatial distribution, which is missing in most traditional reports and surveys. So we wanted to see not only how flourishing evolves over time, but also how it evolves over space, and if there is a spatial trend that can be observed in this study. So that was one of our key approach when trying to devise this project. So as I said, when we were thinking about our approaches, we were thinking about data sets which can be useful to us and which we can use. And one thing that is very basic to flourishing is that flourishing and society are very closely interlinked. From happiness to life satisfaction, physical and mental health, meaning, purpose, all of these interlink and connect very well to our social fabric of work, education, family, religious community, and all, which gives us a set of opportunity as well as challenges for flourishing research. And these social connection also are natural target for social media analysis. So we thought that, okay, this study can benefit a lot from studying the social media and the connections which are expressed on social media for all the flourishing indicators. So that was one of the reasons we studied social, we decided to use GeoTweets for our work. Another important factor which helped us decide GeoTweets as a data set was thinking about new approaches for doing this study. So traditionally, flourishing has been studied through surveys. The surveys are very structured, they are controlled environment and all, but there is a trade-off that surveys are delayed, there's limited coverage they can do, and they are also expensive and time consuming. Whereas nowadays we have social media where billions and millions of people are expressing their lived experience online in real time, which can be captured and can be used and applied to this kind of research very easily. So that's why we decided to move away from traditional approaches and take a more timely and relevant approach of using social media. So once we had the idea in mind that we wanted to use the social media, then we went back to this amazing gold mine of data set that we have at Center for Geographical Analysis. It's our GeoTweet archive. So basically, this archive is a collection of 10 billion geotag tweets. So at CGA, we have been harvesting tweets since 2010 until 2023, when the harvesting was stopped for academic purposes. So we have an archive which ends at 2023, but still it's a lot of space and time coverage that we have in the archive. So as I said, it's a global coverage. There are multilingual tweets in this data set. Then it's quite a good temporal coverage. And this makes it a novel database of this temporal and geographical granularity for social media research. So we decided to use this data set for our research purpose. So when we were thinking about this project, we realized that the scale of the work is too big to take 10 billion tweets at once, and the hardware requirement, the resource requirement would be huge. So we started brainstorming with fellow researchers, including people from I-GUIDE platform, who advised us to focus on USA first before we decided to scale out. And with that advice in mind, we decided to focus our initial part of the work, which was part of the I-GUIDE Spatial AI challenge, on USA. So we found about 2.2 billion tweets in USA, which were used to build this part of the research. And before processing these tweets for flourishing parameters, we wanted to do spatial enrichment of these tweets so that we can do fine-grained spatial analysis. And we enriched all these tweets with the census block identifier. So every tweet has a census block ID and knows which census block it is coming from. Also, this spatial enrichment was important for us because we wanted to see that how these flourishing parameters link to social economic indicators with the other government statistics and survey data which was available. So it's kind of helped us do that kind of interlinking with other spatial data sets that are available. So, and this process in itself was quite hardware consuming to just go and enrich 10 billion tweets with census block. But it helped us to overlay it with other data sets later. Once our processing of the geotweets was done with the spatial enrichment, we decided to apply AI methods on it. The first thing we do is that we use several large language models to create an initial annotated data set. Thereafter, we bring human in the loop to verify that annotation and to clean the training data set. Thirdly, we fine-tune open source LLMs, and I'll go into a little bit detail about the choices which were made in the methodology and why we choose to do what we did. And finally, we run the fine-tuned LLMs at scale on these 2.2 billion tweets in the United States. So the first choice we were fronted with was whether we go with open source LLMs or we use closed source LLMs and so on. And it's an important question for any AI research, that which model do you use and what fits your research objectives as well as scope. So if you see in this particular research, if we take about 27 tokens per tweet and we add the prompt and output, we are talking about 527 tokens per tweet. And so for 10 billion, it would be about 5 to 6 million trillion tokens. And if we start processing that in the commercial models, the cost would be in millions of dollars. And for US, this is about 20% of the data set. So the cost would be about 20% of what is mentioned on this slide. And Llama 2 and Llama 3 itself are trained on trillions of tokens. So cost was one of the big factors that we decided to go open source, use open source LLMs and not go for the commercial and closed models. But apart from the cost, there were other factors more driven by science, which helped us choose open source LLMs. One was the reproducibility that we were getting, the replicability, which helped people to replicate our research in later, and also the transparency. Mostly the open source are mostly transparent, at least you know the fine tuning, you know the data that is going into it. And also the open source are quite scalable models. They are also more stable. We are not dependent on a new model will come in some time and then you have to change the whole model set to. And we had more control in fine-tuning these open source models. So besides the cost factor, we had other reasons to select open source LLM. So we decided to go with Llama 2 and Llama 3 for this project. Then another important part of the methodology was fine-tuning. I think this is one of the most important step of the methodology. And after this comes the validation. But fine-tuning, what fine-tuning does, it retains only a small subset of parameters on specific tasks. Since we have such a big data set, we wanted our models to be fine-tuned on the specific tasks which we wanted them to perform. And for our fine-tuning, we used LoRA, the low-rank adaptation of large language models. So instead of updating the entire big weight matrix, LoRA added a low-rank decomposition, and within affordable, like it's very cheap to get the model achieve the desired results with LoRA and QLoRA. So both of these we use to fine-tune our model. Fine-tuning may also help later in the validation, and it works well on open source models. So whatever methodology I described is very infrastructure heavy. It required a large amount of GPU resources to do. So when we started thinking about the project, the first thing we talked to our HPC team and we started seeing the in-house resources which were present at Harvard to support this work. And our FAS research computing came into picture, and the Kempner Institute at Harvard. So we used research required computing resources from them. However, after a certain while, we realized, since these are shared resources, we realized that we need more computing infrastructure help to complete the entire scope of the project. That's when we started talking to the community, and we came to I-GUIDE Spatial AI Challenge, and where we were supported and we were directed to the NSF access allocation, which helped a lot in our work. So combination of our in-house resources and the community resources were used to do this project. And you can see the large amount of infrastructure that was used. We used about 1+ million GPU hours on FES-RC and Kepner. And since I said these are shared resource, so mostly these GPU resources we were using were in the idle cycle, that when nobody is using it, the GPUs are lying idle, then it was allocated to our work, and we use those idle hours to do our work. And also for NSF access allocation, we used about 24,000 GPU hours. So as you see on the right, there is a graph which we show how the weekly GPU usage. And you can see from January, February, when we were fine-tuning and validating the model, it was not so high. But when we started the inference cycle, then around March, it started to go up and up. So it's a quite high demanding on computing infrastructure, these kind of projects. And this project has been nominated for HPC Wire Award for the best use of high performance computing for data analytics and artificial intelligence. Now I talked a little bit about the methodology and what we did, and I would like to discuss a little bit of our preliminary results, since the processing is still going on. These are not final results, but we still are seeing the trends. We are seeing some interesting trends which are evolving from this analysis, and which are what we were expecting, especially in terms of spatial divide, which we are seeing, or the spatial variations, which we are seeing. So first, before going into particular indicators, we started looking into the salience of which topic is discussed more on social media, which topics are discussed less, what is the number of tweets for a particular topic, and so on. So we made average salience by variable graph, and here you will see the mean salience and the variable on the x-axis and the variables on the y-axis. So if you see into this graph, you will see that a lot of our variables which have high salience were optimism, happiness, empathy, belonging. We were seeing a large number of tweets for these things, whereas migration and smoking health, drink health, and all these were among one of the least salient topics. So this graph shows the overall variation of the trend which we saw in this 2.2 billion tweets for US. Then I'll discuss a little bit about the few of the indicators. It's where we are seeing some interesting trend evolving. For example, happiness. This is, you see on the left, a graph from 2013 and then from 2017. And in other time period also, we are seeing a sort of east-west spatial trend emerging as happiness. So this is something which we are going to explore further to see and to justify what is happening by overlaying it with other government statistics and other CDC variables to see why this trend is emerging. But we are seeing a spatial trend between east and west emerging in happiness, particularly, which is one of the most salient variables which we have seen in this data set. Also, if you see the temporal graph of happiness, we see that it's high around 2015, and then it starts to drop and goes down around, and then again starts to rise around 2020 and 2023, which is a trend which aligns very well with the World Happiness Index report too. So that is another thing which we are going to overlay it with World Happiness report, and then try to make more sense of these findings, both spatially and temporally, what is happening. Now, from happiness, we wanted to see how depression looks like on these maps. And we found a very interesting finding in depression, that there was a very close alignment of our finding with CDC places map for frequent mental distress. So we were seeing that Midwest USA was showing lower levels of depression compared to Southeast US, where we were seeing elevated depression or elevated mental health distress. So it's aligning quite well. with the CDC places map, and we'll continue to look into the spatial trends for all different years. And also in terms of temporal graph, we are seeing the same similar findings like happiness, that it goes down in a certain time period and then started to rise again before and around the pandemic time. Also, between depression and mental health distress, we found that there is a certain divide that seems to be emerging between rural and urban areas. And this has been discussed in a couple of papers by Gerber et al. And all in their findings in Europe. And we are seeing similar trends, how rurality affects mental health, depression, and life satisfaction. And we are seeing similar trends for USA on the social media. And mental distress and rurality both significantly influence depression, but when we take them into combination, their relationships seem to change. In more rural counties, we saw positive association between mental distress and depression diminishes or even reverses in some cases. So this is something we will keep working on more to see what other trends, but this is the initial trend that we are seeing from rurality and depression. And again, as I said, one of the very stark findings, spatially, which we are seeing, is the rural and urban divide in many of these parameters when it comes to depression, when it comes to life satisfaction. So this is a finding from life satisfaction, initial findings. Still, we are trying to fill up these maps. But if you see, the average life satisfaction in rural was more than in urban areas. And as I said, that other researchers have seen similar trends in Europe. And we are also seeing these trends emerge in our analysis of rural versus urban divide by counties in the United States. And once we did the depression and life satisfaction and these kind of indicators, we were very interested to see if this rural-urban divide also exists between other indicators and what is happening with other indicators when it comes to a spatial divide of rural and urban areas. So here is some regression models which we ran, and we see that a positive connection between belonging, energy, optimism in rural areas, whereas if you go to depression, pain, then that connection weakens and it is more seen in urban areas. So this is something we will keep on exploring, but this initially, at least we are seeing this kind of trends between rural and urban areas, where the indicators seem to be, some indicators seem to be more positively linked to rural areas. Also, it also showed us that how the community which we live in has a big effect on our perception or on our expression of flourishing when it comes to the community and the society that we are living in. And that also circles back to a question of taking the spatial spread of these indicators into account, which has not been done so frequently till now. So this project is still work in progress, but still it has produced a lot of open source resources, because when we were running these models, when we were producing this data, just by the sheer scale of the computing resources which was used and the sheer scale of the work, we realized that it will be very useful to get it out to the community, so that if you are trying to do something similar, you don't have to start from scratch. You can take our models and data and start building on it. So all our material is present on I-GUIDE platform as a reproducible notebook. Our codes and everything you can get on the I-GUIDE platform, and our open data and models you can also get on Hugging Face and GitHub. So if you are doing some kind of similar social media analysis, even if it is for a different topic, I think some of these models and data sets could be very useful starting point to build up on. Right now I talked about the analysis part. But another very important part, when we had all this indicator and we started thinking about it, we thought, okay, it's would make a lot of sense to have a tool to visualize these parameters, which will help people understand these parameters more in terms of visualization rather than just crunching numbers. So we developed this interactive platform where you can visualize these parameters over space and time across different geographical units. And our idea was to democratize the access for not only policymakers, the NGOs who use these kind of human flourishing variables, but also for the general public to see and understand and contribute to flourishing and well-being in their community. So I'd like to give a small demo of what we have built. It's still an old version of the dashboard when we were crunching the data. So the data is old, but the functionality is very much mostly aligned to our new dashboard. So I'll just run this and then we can talk more. This video illustrates the use of our Flourishing Statistics Explorer. It allows you to see the spatial and temporal variation of our 46 flourishing variables. Firstly, you can choose between geographical level, between state and county. Then you can choose the variable for which you would like to do the analysis, such as empathy, migration mode, corruption, happiness. And then finally, you choose the time period for which you would like to analyze this variable. For example, to see the state-wise happiness in 2022, we will first use the select the geographical variable as state. Then we'll select the vari variable as happiness, and then we select the time period as 2022. So on the right, you see the choropath map, which shows the distribution of a state-wise happiness in 2022 on a scale of 1, high happiness, to -1, sadness, in shades from red, very sad, to blue, in dark blue is happy. And then in the bottom, you also see the monthly trends for happiness in terms of stat and salience. Similarly, you can also use this play button here to see the variation of happiness over time. You can also do more granular analysis by switching the geographical level to county. So this map here shows the distribution of county-wise happiness in 2022. The tool also allows you to download the results as a CSV or as a PNG. So it's a tool we are still building, but this is the kind of tool which we are trying to get out in the hands of researchers and larger community who works with flourishing. As I said that this was quite an ambitious project, and running AI at scale on such a big spatial temporal data sets comes with challenges and opportunities, but it also comes with a lot of lessons learned. So I wanted to share a few lessons here with the community so that other working on similar projects can get something from our learnings. I think the most important lesson was that collaboration is the key to do this kind of large scale AI research. And by collaboration, this was a collaboration that started between CGA and IQSS, social sciences researchers, and our geographers, you can say, but then it expanded to involve a lot of contribution from the high performance computing group, not only from Harvard, but from the NSF side, about how to work with the file system, how even to run these processes, how to choose the GPU, and so on. So it comes with collaboration between IT groups and researchers. And also when we were thinking about this ambitious project, one of the things that helped us was to reach out to I-GUIDE and start the collaboration there, because we got not only the computing resources, but also the subject matter expertise, which helped us to rethink about what we wanted to do and how are the best ways to do it. So I think collaboration is key to do anything of this scale. Then scalability is very important when we are thinking about writing the codes. We have to keep in mind that they should be scalable, because we have started with the United States, but our goal is to go global with this research, which means another 8 billion tweets still are left to be analyzed. So while doing our initial pilot for US, we were keeping the scalability in mind, that we still have to run this for 8 billion more tweets. So we have to keep that in mind while designing every code and every data processing and every workflow. Then one thing we realized working on different GPUs, we not only worked on different GPUs, sometimes H100, sometimes A100, But we worked on different clusters. One is Harvard cluster that has its own environment. Then we have NSFXs that works in a different environment. We realized that our code has to be very robust and generalized. So it cannot be specific to one cluster, but we design it in a way that we design a generalized code that can run across clusters and across GPUs because the computing requirement is so high. Then another thing we learned is that checkpoint and passive analysis is very important in this kind of work because if the code breaks, there is no way we can go back because it means a lot of cost in terms of hardware resources and a lot of effort on our end too. So we had a lot of checkpoints and passive analysis in a code while running the LLMs, while running the inference. And another very important point was that non-interactive and batch processing is the key. So we learned how to do batch processing the right way with all the cluster teams, and a lot of batch processing was involved. So learning that is very important for this kind of project. And as I mentioned earlier, that validation and fine tuning, these are one of the two most important steps that to be found in our work, that both these are critical and important when trying to run the AI models on spatial temporal data set. And as mentioned earlier, this is possible because of collaboration with our many groups. And firstly, I would like to thank NSF I-GUIDE for supporting the project, for providing us the resources that we need, providing us the subject matter expertise, and giving a direction to this. And we would like to thank Harvard FASRC, the Kempner Institute, and NSF for all the computing support that has gone into this work. Thank you very much, everyone, and I'm open to questions now.
Fantastic. Thank you, Devika. I'm glad we have time for questions now. I have a couple, but I'm going to wait and see what the audience might bring. There might be a couple that it would be helpful to bring the slides back, but we'll see. If you have a question from the audience, feel free to raise your hand here in the Zoom world, and we'll make sure we can call on you. And you can type a question into the chat space as well. While we wait for somebody to formulate their question, Devika, I had Salim from Algeria, a geoscientist, please, how did you make, so Salim is asking a question here in the chat about setting the weight for the indicators. Okay, well, Salim has provided his information and he's interested in understanding, maybe Devika, you could just comment on anything of how any of your indicators were weighted. You're muted.
Just give me a minute. I can share that slide. I have it in the supplementary. I didn't share that. I didn't share that because of the time constraint, but I can share a little bit on that part now that
that would be great. Thank you.
Give me 1 minute. Is my screen visible?
Not yet.
Okay.
There it is.
Oh, okay. So if I understand the question correctly, one of the things which we did for weighting or multi-label problems was use the Gerard index, and we saw that the higher the index, the better it is. So in case of this, we weighted all our, we created an index for all our variables, and then we went through and say that where the index is higher versus where it is lower. And also some of the key findings from that were that fine tuning is very effective on small models. Small fine-tuned model worked good or even sometimes better than the ChatGPT-4. And the larger the training data set, the harder to fine-tune for us. But this is how we created an index for every model. And also in terms of LoRa, I can show this slide that based on the weights of the training models, this is how we created the weights for the for our model based on the LoRa technique and QLoRa techniques. Does that answer the question?
I think it might, and maybe he could follow up with
Yes.
you. He's also wondered about climate data. I think that's probably a little bit beyond the scope of this project, but I would love, actually, when we're talking about weights and standardizing, could you, Devika, put that, oh, yeah, super, no,
The data, I
yeah,
didn't include that because of time. So
no, we've got time. Yeah, show us, please.
climate data, yeah. So climate was also very interesting because once we finished calculating these indicators, we started looking into where we can get the climate data from. And the climate risk data we got from a company called Alpha Geo. It's a company that produces these indicators for climate. And we saw very interesting findings that are emerging out. So there is a positive correlation between climate risk and mental health and physical health disorders. The top parameters that are in the red box, the depression, pain, loneliness, and all this, we are seeing a positive correlation coming out there in climate risk. And there is a mixed evidence between altruism, charity, volunteering, and climate risk. And there is a negative correlation that is emerging between optimism, happiness, and climate risk. So if this graph makes sense, this is what we found for climate parameters and flourishing dimensions.
Excellent. Is this this particular, what you've looked at right here, the combination of flourishing and climate risk, is this going into a paper or other source that is going to be, how is this next going to be shared?
So we are working on a paper firstly to get this data set out because we want to make all these flourishing parameters available open source to the researchers. So that is our first paper in line, but then we will start coming up with papers on different findings, climate risk versus rural and urban divide. But right now we are focusing on the data paper.
Okay, no, that sounds great. And we are particularly interested in the in the data, not that we're just totally fixated on data, but that's a big part of what I-GUIDE's focus is to be able to work with these large data sets and make them available, as you've done very well. We have a question in the chat from Rui. Hi, Rui. When you analyze the Twitter data, did you analyze at tweets level or aggregate to Twitter user level to generate the depression and happiness indicators?
That
Because
we analyzed at tweet level. All this
at the
yeah,
at the tweet level. So how did, I know you, I mean, once you get up to 2.2 billion, which was across that time span, I know that, you know, how did you manage, I think from your dashboard, I couldn't really tell that closely, but can you go down to the county level with that? Or is it, I mean, it's not just state level geography.
No, we go down to county level, and that is why we enriched it with census block. Every tweet was enriched. So if you
Yeah. So with the census block, I mean, I'm just wondering about some of the lower numbers about people geolocated tweets in small counties and blocks in North Dakota. I'm just wondering if how much what statistically had to be done to accommodate for some of the low numbers in some spaces.
Yes, that's a good point. So there is a lot of so we have not still finished the processing for the counties. It's still ongoing, but we are seeing low numbers in some of the counties because of the and there is also like the reach of Twitter versus. So this data is has a platform bias like any other social media data. We are talking about Twitter users, so it's not uniform across.
Right.
But like any other data set, even surveys have self-reporting bias, but this data set does has a bias of platform and even the age of users whom are on Twitter. So that's why we should take it as flourishing indicators as expressed on social media and by those on social media.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I mean, that's one of the challenges with yeah, as you just described it, with all research into using social media as a data source, all of that always has to be taken into account. If you could put up the slide again that showed the 2013 comparison to something else, I just wanted to ask a little bit about that. Yeah, no, that was the next one. Yeah, so some of your data, I mean, you were showing this something that's been standardized to a -1 to a 1. Can you just, in case others had missed some of this as well, the scale on this in 2013, And this, I don't think this is just a cartographic thing. We're going, but you know, it's so small here on my laptop that it's even really hard to gauge this. But when in this particular representation that you're showing right now, are we seeing similar? Is there a difference in the range, even at the highest of the happiness at either
Yes,
time slice?
yes, there is some difference because we are seeing the differences in scale on different years.
Right.
Yes, there is.
Okay.
Mhm.
Right. And it's, yeah, and I really appreciate you putting the temporal trends down there as well. It's really interesting to align those with different things going on in the world.
Yes.
So any other questions from the audience right now? As Devika said, their group put their notebook and materials up on the I-GUIDE platform. I would like to take a moment. I'm going to put, Devika, maybe I could, let me see, don't stop sharing your screen yet.
Mhm.
But I would like to quickly pull up my screen if we have a minute right here. Actually, let's just keep you sharing. Would you do me a favor and go to the I-GUIDE website, I-GUIDE,
Oh,
yeah, I-GUIDE/IO. Yep, just the main I-GUIDE website would be great. So I-GUIDE/IO. Yep. Yep, exactly. So let me just say a couple of things about I-GUIDE, because I'd like to say that we have officially this week, on Monday of this week, launched our 2025-2026 Spatial AI Challenge. And that was the challenge that Devika's and her group participated in, where we ended up having, I don't know, a dozen teams began, and I think 6 or 7 or 8 actually finished the challenge. But you can find information about the 2025-26 challenge probably underneath our events pull-down menu. So that's one thing that I wanted to, yep, a little bit further down, Spatial AI Challenge 25-26. Yep, brand new, hot off the press. And you can see there the dates. It was launched this week, and in a few days, we'll have the abstract form. In order to have your project considered to participate in our Spatial AI Challenge, there's a pretty brief process where you submit an abstract and more information, and then we'll have a brief interview with you. And we hope to support as many teams as I-GUIDE is able to do. This is our final I-GUIDE year with our current funding from National Science Foundation. So underneath the actual I-GUIDE activity, this will be our last year of running this challenge. Fingers crossed, maybe there's always other funding in the future. So there's the other Spatial AI Challenge going on, and you can see, again, I encourage you to look at the I-GUIDE website and learn about these opportunities. The other thing I wanted to mention specifically about the type of questions that Devika's group is looking at, and for those of you interested in these connections between the social sciences and climate, we completed in August our 2025 summer school held in Boulder, Colorado. And a couple of the teams there looked at one team in particular was specifically looking at survey data, a very large collection of survey data from around the world. They focused on India, and that was at Yale, actually, the Yale Center for the Environment. Summer school materials, many of the summer school materials are also up on the I-GUIDE platform. And Devika, just one last click, if you could go to the I-GUIDE platform button and then click Open Platform. This is the platform that Devika's referenced. This is open for everyone. Anyone, be able to log in. We use a CI logon, so you'll be able to log in with a university credential. And you can find the materials there. And what the important part about this is we do try to make it possible to execute these computational notebooks right from this platform itself. Of course, it is super challenging to always keep notebooks exactly current. and be able to make sure that everything runs smoothly the very first time. But you'll be able to also get information there. Like Devika mentioned that some of her materials, their work is also, they're going to be keeping it current on GitHub as well. So you can find other types of projects. I mentioned the summer school projects are all going to be here, and there are also notebooks and projects, notebooks and data sets there associated with social sciences and climate data, and people asking questions about disaster resilience and extreme events. So some important things coming out about with I-GUIDE, and we'll have our 2026 summer school will also be announced soon. So lots of opportunities for the broad community to get involved with our activities. If there are no more questions, we can wrap this up. Devika, thank you so much for sharing about this. I know that we're sorry that, well, we congratulate Stefano on his new position with the European Commission. Can you say something about that?
Joined the European Commission, I think, Center for Algorithmic Transparency.
Excellent. So I'm glad that he was able to participate while he was based at Harvard, and thank you for sharing all of the work that you and the rest of the group worked on together. So everyone, this has been recorded. We'll process the recording. It'll be on the I-GUIDE's VCO website. We have another activity, another VCO coming up next week. There's going to be a very busy fall schedule of these. So thank you for coming today. And we are really looking forward to continue to engage the broader geospatial community. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. And thank you.
Bye-bye.